Hey, so I was just doing some coaching. I had this beautiful client who I'm coaching at the moment, who's also a listener of the podcast, and we kind of worked through childhood stuff, and then we were working through the actual triggers as they present with her children at the moment. And we were kind of going over this scenario where she'd hit a speed bump, and she was like, "Do you ever do this where you go, fuck, I don't know what I'm doing here, or I don't know what I want to do next, or what even I should do next, what's the right move, what's the wrong move?" Like, do you actually ever get there? Because I listened to you in the podcast and you and Bridget talk about, there was this scenario, and so I just handle it this way, and blah, blah, blah. And I cracked up. I burst out loud going, and I spoke back to her and I said, you know what? All of the time, so please don't run some sort of fantasy that Bridget and I have our shit sorted all of the time, and that we always have a pre-planned concept of what we're going to do next and what the right next move is and how that looks, because we don't. We're just average mums just like you guys. We just have a body of wisdom and a big vision that pulls us forward in a why, and I think that's really important. When you know that what you're doing and what you're asking yourself to be conscious of and move through in the moment is drawn by something bigger than the moment, it creates more intentional practice to look at it as a practice and to stay here in this moment with a bit more presence. Does that mean we know what we're doing all the time? Fuck no. We are exactly where you are. Every time we get a new child who's a new stage and a new age, and each time we hit that same stage with a new child, a new evolution of us, we're going to hit pieces of our story that we haven't met before, pieces of ourselves that we haven't seen before or we haven't rolled with before. And we've got to, each and every time, the practice is, in a way, the tools or the essence of it is the same, but we reveal new pieces, and what to do next comes as a practice of moving into observation and having a space in which we can respond, or creating the pocket in which we can be responsive rather than reactionary, because each new age and stage brings up new triggers, right? Which is often where we find ourselves when we're on shaky ground, not sure what to do or how to handle a situation. So every time, the practice for both of us really is to bring as much conscious awareness as we can in the moment, to kind of take the third party, right? So we're not even just observing our child. We want to be able to create enough breathing room that we can observe ourselves, so kind of even remove ourselves back a little bit further so we can observe ourselves, so we can observe our child, so we can observe the dynamics that are happening in the room, so that we can really absorb all of that information and then decide, okay, ask myself the question, okay, I'm going to look at this. What's mine? What's theirs? What's triggers? Where have my triggers come from? Are they just part of my old story? Do I need to believe them as a truth in this particular moment? And therefore, what is my truth? What then defines what the best next step is of action that is responsive and is pulled along to that bigger vision of where we want to head in parenting and in teaching loving skills. So, I just think we are all there all of the time, but it's the level of conscious awareness as practice that we look at our families and our mothering and the conflict between our children as a yoga practice, right? You don't have to go to a studio or sit on a mountaintop. You can literally sit in your family on your lounge room floor and be your own spiritual practice. This is the yoga of the heart. This is the yoga of family dynamics, of relationship being pivotal to the evolution of the soul. So, you don't have to leave your home to find those answers, but what your job always to do is to be with what is. What comes up is always just the universe or higher self speaking to you this bit. And so feelings are like the red arrow, right? The triggers. Here, they're like the GIF with the big red arrow. Here, right here, this moment, right here. Because the universe doesn't speak in words. The universe speaks in feelings, right? And as our humanity floods through our body, we are responsive to feelings. And so feelings are not a truth in and of themselves. They're simply a language of the universe because they are universal. And they're a language of our body. And so our job is simply to learn that language, not to believe our feelings as truth and move into reaction for those feelings, but instead to go, oh, it's like the red flag, right? The big GIF red arrow. If I was to take the third party observer and take a photo right now, that arrow would be like, here, right here, this stuck bit. Do you see this? I'm going to make you feel it. So you bring awareness to this moment right here. This is your next bit because this holds the key to your untapped potential. It's going to ask you to go back into your old history and traumas and hurts and unwrite the story you don't need anymore so that you can move forwards with bigger impact and loving wider and bigger and deeper and seeing more of your family and your children, right? Your feelings are just like the big GIF arrow going here, right here, not a truth, not in and of themselves. So that's how Bridget and I always enter these moments, particularly when it's sibling conflicts and you feel like, God, how many times do we have to do this? And how many times do we go around this circuit? You know, is actually realizing that there's something here for me. And this is in and of itself a spiritual practice. And that's why it's important to show up and create the breathing room in which we can. But don't get on a pedestal where you listen to the podcast and you think we have all of the answers all of the time in the moments that we need them, because often it takes the mess up to be able to get to the point where you go, that went a little left or a little right. What feedback can I take from that, and how can I scaffold around knowing that if I haven't quite healed this red GIF flag, this little trigger, it's going to keep coming up for me. So I know I'm going to meet this again. So next time I meet this, here's what I can put around it so that I can have a set of tools in order to be responsive rather than reactive when it comes to my children. So that was my thought bubble for today. I hope there was something in that for you.